Earlier today, NASCAR head to the Charlotte Roval to continue their battle and innovation to find the next great car for their Gen 7 machine. Everyone in here, though, tonight will tell you, just go get a Porsche. The Porsche Owners Club comes to the Charlotte Roval for round number 14 of their 16 race season here, and it's coming down to the wire in both point series. So glad to have you along for the ride tonight, live on the Global Sim Racing Channel. I'm Devin Henry. Alongside me in the virtual booth is Joe Peak, and behind the scenes is our director, Sean Ambrose, using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Well, a couple NASCAR drivers got a good look at this track in the physical world earlier today, but how about you go ahead and take a closer look at the Charlotte Roval with our GSRC lap guide.
Welcome to Charlotte Motor Speedway. Until a few years ago, most race fans probably didn't know that this track had a road course layout. Thanks to a huge revamp to prepare for NASCAR to race on it, the Roval is now a top-tier facility. Situated in the northeast corner of Charlotte, North Carolina, there's a whopping 6 different road course layouts. They range from just under a mile to a little over 2 miles in length. Like most Rovals, the high-speed banking on the oval portion makes up the majority of the lap length. However, one unique feature that isn't often seen on other Rovals is that this track includes a decent amount of elevation change. Passing is often difficult, and the 2 chicanes on the oval portion are notorious for their unforgiving curbing. Lesser-powered cars find overtakes a bit easier with the slipstream on the banking. but anything with some oomph is going to have to work very hard to get by their rivals. If anything, attrition often rears its ugly head, and simply keeping the car pointed forward and clean will net you a good finish. While the debate rages on among gearheads on whether oval cars should race here, one thing is for sure, it provides some wild action and almost never disappoints the fans in the stands.
Well, recently this track was essentially built for NASCAR, and it's had some epic finishes for those, but ever since this track was added on iRacing, it's really become a favorite for all kinds of racing. And Joe, it's just kind of cool to see these Porsches out here on the Roval.
Absolutely, and it suits itself pretty well for different types of racing, especially since they altered that chicane on the backstretch. That said, it's still kind of tough to try and overtake around this track. This is the 17-turn version that they're running here today. And they've got that nice tighter chicane compared to what they originally started this thing with. That's the main spot that you'll probably see drivers manage to get by one another. Now, this last chicane we see on screen right before the start-finish line does offer kind of a final shot if you're brave, but it's going to be tough to try and execute into there just because of the entry and how tight it is through. And the infield, expect it to be mainly single file and rely mainly on mistakes from drivers to have anything happen into there. But it's surprisingly tricky. This is one of the few Rovals that actually has elevation change in it, believe it or not. And I'm not just talking about the getting onto the banking. In the infield section, it goes up and down quite a bit. And that certainly causes a lot of understeer moments, especially for the GT4 cars. That'll be something to watch out for today as the drivers progress through the race.
And quite frankly, it turned into one of my favorite road courses to run here on iRacing, ironically enough, and it has certainly become a favorite, whether it be Pro 2 Lights, F1 cars. I've seen a boatload of different series attack this Roval course, and the Porsche Owners Club with a few sponsors to help them haul their way out here to Charlotte, and that includes Sunset Mortgage. Don't put your money in the bank, be the bank. Check them out today at sunsetcash.net. And Octavio Tequila. Celebrate now for great tasting tequila. Go to octaviotequila.com and purchase today. And Century Financial Consultants, making the rest of your life the best of your life. You can check out their website at centuryretire.com. And if you might be interested in advertising with GSRC, you will love the channel's 1 million monthly global impressions, as it's just a great way to get your branding seen by a diverse audience here in the sim racing world. Follow the link in the description below on YouTube or visit globalsimracingchannel.com/advertising to learn more. And as these drivers attack that chicane on the back straightaway, the championship continues to get stranger and stranger. We changed from GT3 to RSRs now. Teddy Framheim finally got back on top of the podium, winning the last race 2 weeks ago at Mosport. Connor Bloom, he has a pair of wins on the year. And Joe, Matt Hollander moving into third, but I don't believe he is in attendance tonight. Last I checked, he was on vacation, which I didn't know you went on vacations during race season, but hey, that's just him, I guess.
Well, in the GT4s, it's been pretty much a one-man show. Jacob Abrams with a handicap back to Paul Newton, who's been trying to give him a hard time, and he has here and there, but generally Jacob has had the measure of the field, which is why we're seeing such a huge gap. BJ Fulton then kind of bring it up third place. But look at this, a tie for fourth. Stad and Baccignone on 119 points behind our leader. Of course, they could catch up to BJ depending on what kind of finish that we see from Fulton today. So he's got to watch out. And Ost is only 1 point back behind them. So while the top two have pretty much made it a non-fight and with little drama amongst them, everything else behind them is still up for grabs.
And quite frankly, GT4 has been my favorite to watch. Obviously, Abrams dominated the first half of the season, but recently Eric Oviatt went on for 3 wins in a row at one point. Boccignone has been in victory lane, Paul Newton as well. So GT4 has some surprise victors here and there that's fun to watch. And for you guys to watch as well at home, you can check out live timing and scoring, just like we have up here in the virtual booth. That's at gsrc.tv. Keep up with all of your favorite drivers on gsrc.tv. Boccignone right now actually second on the board behind Jacob Abrams in this open qualifying session that these drivers are having. Abrams leading right now in the GT4s. And Joe, why don't you go through, a few people might be new here checking out this Roval race. What is this series all about?
Well, we're in round 14 out of 16, and you can see there's two classes. The GT4s are the Porsche 718, it's the Cayman, and then the 991 RSR is basically GTE spec that they're running over there. Now, that is actually a wide disparity in lap times between those two cars, so you'll see uh, very quick approaching speeds between the two classes. It's a 30-minute race, so thankfully they won't have to lap them too often. And they've got open qualifying, which is taking place right now. And it is an open setup series. Both these cars can find some speed if you know how to tweak them. I would assume that these guys, since many of them do own Porsches, some of which do actually own the Cayman that is here in the sim, will be able to find some tricks to get a little bit more out of them.
Yeah, this is a really fun series because every single driver in this series is a member of the Porsche Owners Club. That's a real-life Porsche club based mostly out of California, and they race up and down, whether it be wheel to wheel or just time trials across from northern to southern California. We were at Auto Club Speedway earlier this year in the sim world. They also hit that in the physical world as well. So it's a lot of fun to see some of these drivers who know each other pretty well go toe-to-toe in the virtual world too. The RSRs are open to all current POC members with an iRating above 1500. Also a few pro drivers in the field as well. And then the Club Sport Caymans, that's open to every single POC member. And so all these drivers, for the most part, have some sort of driving experience. But, Joe, it's when we come out to these East Coast races that some people just have no experience at before. And so they're practicing here and trying to figure out what's the best way around.
Yeah, and we saw that at Auto Club when we were doing some of the interviews. Some of the drivers talking about their experience racing there in real life and using that to their advantage. They didn't necessarily have that at Mosport. And as you said, another of our East Coast tracks here at Charlotte. This is also relatively new. Now, that said, there was the older version of the Roval that was actually there for years. It just wasn't really used for sports cars or much racing at all. Kind of was for some driving days here and there. And it also was a slightly different layout and much narrower than what we have now. So it's a lot less likely that any of these drivers have actually gone here and physically run here yet, but never say never, because like you said, we do have some pros who may have actually hopped out and got a few laps in.
And I think most people associate this track with NASCAR, arguably the most popular series that runs there, and kind of the reason why this track was refurbished, if you will. It was for NASCAR, but for those who know NASCAR, what might we see there that we won't necessarily see when these Porsches hit the track again?
Well, one of the things that these Porsches have is a lot more cornering ability. The GT4, not nearly dramatically as much. It still is probably a little bit more comparable to the stock cars, except a far lighter. But the GTE cars, those RSRs, are just lightning quick through the corners and very, very stable. They're made for stuff like this. So they're going to be doing much quicker lap times than maybe people who were watching the NASCAR races are used to. And the other thing is that they have far shorter braking distances, especially going into that final chicane. You can get pretty close up to it before you have to get onto the binders, which is why it makes it a pretty decent place to try and overtake. That said, they do have to be careful of those slowdown penalties, Devin. Basically, for those not familiar with iRacing, if you cut the course, if you blow through a chicane or things like that, iRacing automatically has sensors around the track that will give you basically, hey, you have to give this many seconds back, and you've got this much time to do it. It's usually about in the realm of 30 seconds that they give you to try and slow up the car. That's just to keep anybody from getting an unfair advantage. It's not like F1 where, oh, you get 3 free offs and you don't really have to do much. It's no, you can't get any sort of faster lap time or gain any sort of positions by going through. And with these chicanes being a little bit tricky, particularly I think for the GT4s, which don't like to turn in very well, you're going to see a number of drivers probably suffer from those throughout 30 minutes.
Yeah, sometimes it's extremely difficult as well, as if you're going into a corner right behind someone like we might see some GTEs doing. It's hard to see your mark sometimes, and you can completely miss one of the two chicanes. And even if you miss it, slowdown penalty is bad enough, but sometimes those turtles can do actual damage to the front suspension as well. Almost similar, I guess, to what you see in NASCAR. John Momeyer here, the former ASU alum. Jerry Freckleton also here in the GT4s. Michael Ost was actually on his outlap. He still has his Halloween decor on his car as well, apparently. But Jacob Abrams leading the way here in GT4. Boccignone in second. BJ Fulton in third. And an interesting addition here. Let me double check this. Yeah, Connor Bloom in GT4 today. He's been running a lot of the GTE, whether it was 3 or the RSR, but Connor Bloom a part of the GT4 group today. So an interesting development there.
Yeah, I wonder if we could get a camera on him, because I want to see if the paint that I've got for him, yeah, it is the same paint that we've got on the broadcast here. That is the Rum Bum paint that this GT4 car has run in real life. Of course, the Pilot Challenge, we see this car that has gone under many different names over the years under IMSA. And I don't have as many factoids that Peter tends to have on those realms, but I definitely remember watching many times that specific car take part in lots of wonderful races here across North America.
Yeah, Connor Bloom knows his racing history. He is the pink pig when he's racing in the GTEs, but he is second in points in the RSRs and GTE, and he has a pair of wins as well. So Connor Bloom ditching the RSR, going to GT4, and that might be another player. And that's something in the middle of the season. This club switched from the GT3s to the RSRs, and you saw Eric Oviatt move from the RSR to GT4 and win 3 races in a row. And now Jacob Abrams, Paul Newton, and BJ Fulton have another driver that they have to try to be ahead of here at the Roval, and just more stout competition here in GT4.
Yeah, it has grown immensely, as Abrams is going to take a little bit too much curb there. Slide off into the infield. That's another thing you got to watch out for. The Porsche is kind of notorious for what's called porpoising. It kind of sounds like what it implies with the animal, where the front end of the car, if you hit a bump, especially these tall curbs, it just hops up and down, almost like a dolphin popping out of the water. That's really bad for traction and turning, obviously. You can dial some of that out with this setup, but really the best way to avoid it is to be careful about how you hit those curbs. You can use them to some effect in these cars to get a good lap, but you really can't clobber them or it'll suck up your lap time.
Yeah, it can help you turn, but it can also help you take a great ride through the synthetic turf as well here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, which I haven't found to be much better in the sim world than the regular grass at other tracks. So definitely not an excursion that you want to participate in here, no matter where you are. Final minute here for drivers to clock in one more lap, or at least begin their lap, watching Jad Duncan here in what Peter describes as the Kermit the Frog mobile. Then, of course, Octavio Tequila's own Michael Johnson here in his GT.
This is a new face I don't think we've seen in the series. Larry Haas, if I'm not mistaken. Not sure if that's Haas or Hayes, but the 266 is just put his first time in. It's going to put him at the back of the field, but we'll see how he fares over the course of the race. It's always different between going a full distance and just doing one lap pace. Let's see what Ost can do, though.
Yeah, Ost towards the back of the field. I think he only completed one go lap, a 1:05.296. That will bump him up quite a ways, but not far enough. Just about 5 spots, and Ost outside the top 10 right now as the drivers complete one final green flag lap, trying to get by that line before time runs out, and then these drivers will have enough time to complete that lap that they began. Paul Newton here in the Peels Oranges car. Of course, we've been following him a lot. Doug Boccignone, he's been extremely well, has picked up a win. Mollmeyer with the Sun Devils on board. So a lot of fun competition here. And like we mentioned, because some of these drivers have actually raced wheel to wheel in the physical world before, it just kind of makes this a little bit more fun to let these drivers go out in a car that, you know, they don't have to pay the bills on and they don't have to fix themselves. And they kind of go at it a little bit more, but still a high amount of respect between the drivers.
Yeah, and I love that they're able to come in with all that knowledge about how each other drives, and I don't think that Haas is going to make the corner. Yeah, he was in way too deep on that one, so this lap actually won't count at all for him, regardless of what his time is, just because he cut the course. Ost, I think, going to get one more shot at this. I'm trying to remember if he did cross the line, I want to say, before time was out. Last time, though, he was down to 15th and he promoted himself to 12th. He's going to take it anyways. No, it is going to count. Excuse me. A 23.9. He's up to 5th. A huge jump.
moving up about 8 spots there in the final seconds. And Michael Ost, I believe, the last car on track as well. So that's one way to end it, moving into the top 5 in GT4, top 10 overall. And it looks like every driver has completed their lap. So we will take a look here at your starting lineup tonight here at the Charlotte Roval. First things first, your GTEs and the RSRs. Teddy Framheim will start on the pole, the qualifying machine. Bayan Salehi will start in second. Michael Johnson qualifying in third. Michael Bolton fourth. And Jim Slavic rounds out the 5 RSRs. Jacob Abrams will lead the way in GT4, followed by Doug Boccignone, BJ Fulton, Paul Newton, and Michael Ost.
Connor Bloom will start behind them with Jad Duncan and the 981, followed by Corey Latvala in the number 22, starting 13th overall. Then you've got Michael Roban starting in 14th. Jim Walsh starts P15 and Jerry Freckleton in the 16th spot. Mark Rondeau in P17. He'll be followed by Robert Stout to his outside. Momeyer will be P19 and Ron Palmer in 20th. Last driver to get a time in was Haas. And is Aaron Edwards actually here? No, it looks like Aaron is not in the session, so I don't believe he'll be able to take part in the race.
Always love seeing Ron Palmer in the field, the 64-year-old POC president on the Sim Racing Rig. Been racing motorcycles since he was 5 until he was 35. Even raced professionally for American Honda for a couple of years as well. Always fun to see Ron Palmer out here. And also, they do this in the street stocks for all of you guys who are younger with iRacing in the rookie series. They do it in the Roval too. It does make for some scary little, burnouts to kind of get off and get onto the grid, though. I don't know if I love it as a driver, but it sure looks cool spectating.
It really does. It's kind of a nice touch that iRacing's able to do. Fun story for Ron. He'll have some work before he can really claim one of the most experienced, because apparently iRacing tweeted a 90-year-old that's racing on the sim. So there's plenty of people still out there kicking, and I love to see that. Honestly, I feel like that's one of the things that we haven't touched on a lot when it comes to iRacing. We talk about how it opens doors and kind of democratizes racing so that anybody can take part as long as they got the computer. It also means you could be young or old, and the physical limitations that you see in the real world don't matter quite as much, which is really cool to me.
Yeah, it's funny. Actually, one of my grandfather's friends heard that I was actually on this broadcast, and he's a part of a Porsche club here in Arizona, as it looks like that might be Ost there. Ost looks like went for a ride there during his warm-up lap here, but one of my grandpa's friends was like, hey, how do I join that sim racing thing? That seems cool. And I'm like, man, I don't know if you got the computer for it, because some of you guys your age don't necessarily know what you need for it, but just the intrigue sometimes. And I just hope that when I'm 90, I'm still able to just do this. It's intense.
Looks like Ost is going to be allowed to get back into position, but unfortunately he hit the wall. So he's going to start this race already with damage. He kind of had a bit of a George Russell moment there trying to get his tires warmed up.
So Joe, before we go green here at the Roval, what are your keys to finding victory lane here, whether you're an RSR or a GT4?
Hit parts. I was talking about those cut course penalties. They can be a killer, especially on the first laps, because the penalties tend to be harsher based on how iRacing implements them, which is essentially by your split times during the race. Without the split time, it just kind of gives you a big whack and makes you slow down a lot more than you would need to later on. So make sure not to miss your braking. Make sure to hit your apexes, not cut the corners too much and get those curbs, or necessarily clip the walls, as they are very tight around here, and there's a lot of places where you can take damage. If you do that, I think you're looking at a decent finish, because attrition could play a part today.
So going through NASCAR 1 and 2 to the first chicane, what's the slipstream like here? Can you really get a draft down this? Because there's not a ton of room, and then you got to hit the chicane and some heavy braking here down the back straight.
You can. It's not going to be dramatic. It'll be just enough, I think, that you'll see some guys maybe use it to attack. What it will often do, though, you talked about losing sight of your brake markers. If it pulls you in nice and close, then it can cause problems in trying to make sure you do hit those marks. So it can hurt or it can help, obviously, out here.
Well, the Porsche Owners Club coming just near the conclusion of their long 16-race season, running every other Monday. There's 3 races to go, 2 to go until we have a 90-minute race, but for now, it's just a 30-minute sprint. Teddy Framheim, Bayan Salehi leading the field, and we are green at the Roval for the Porsche Owners Club.
Very tight there between second and third. So Leahy just sneaking by Johnson at the line, but they didn't make contact. Abrams already under attack as well here, Devin.
GT4's already getting scrappy as the RSRs really start to move on and start to separate. Boccignone in second right now, trying to hunt down Jacob Abrams, Fulton, Newton, and Ost in a stack right behind them.
A little bit of contact between Mark Rondeau and I believe it was Robert Stout. It was side to side, but I think it may have hurt the suspension of Robert.
Framheim and RSR is already starting to move away from the field, and this battle is just beginning here in GT4, but even Abrams and Boccignone trying to distance themselves right now from BJ Fulton and Paul Newton. Ost also there, but these GT4s also starting to separate as well. A couple GT4s in the wall trying to get into NASCAR 1, and that's just another tough aspect of this course.
It really is. It's so tempting to get on the throttle and the car just wants to understeer. This looks like Newton around the outside, and I think he's going to get it done over Fulton. That'll move him into third. But yeah, corner exit onto the oval portion, turn NASCAR 1 and 2, will be critical to the lap time.
So Teddy Framheim leads the way. This is Bayan Salehi here. Going around in turn number 1, Johnson, Bolton, and Slavic not too far behind and all pretty close together right now. Abrams, though, still your leader in GT4. So take a look back here at all the GT3s.
A wreck in the back. Larry Haas got into Momeyer. Momeyer unfortunately got the most damage out of that, but he's got the car moving. So we're still watching our leaders here. And Abrams now has things under control. Like we were talking about earlier, he was under threat, but just one lap later, and already he's distanced himself.
And Joe, this is 30 minutes. Obviously, there's a lot of race to go. We're 2 minutes in, but this is a sprint. This is not really even an endurance race. This is 30 minutes of racing. It's really just a sprint. So how much do you actually push right here at the very beginning? You know Abrams is in front of you. Is this something where you go, you know what, I'm just going to hold back right now and we got plenty of racing still to go? Or do you need to be going 100% all 30 minutes?
You do need to push, but you have to remember, we're going to have lap traffic with the RSRs coming through. That sometimes offers you a chance if he, gets caught in the wrong place. That isn't a reason to hang back necessarily, but it's something to kind of calm your nerves when you realize, okay, if this is my maximum pace, I might get a shot somewhere down the line if things just swing my way.
Paul Newton in third in GT4, and the Peels Oranges number 217 machine, with the orange rims right behind him, and the other orange and blue car is BJ Fulton trying to make chase, and they've distanced themselves from Jad Duncan, who got around Michael Ost just a moment ago after Ost had an issue. Now Ost able to make his way back around, and Duncan under attack from Lafala.
Corey's going to look to the inside. I was going to say, usually you can't make much of a pass down into 3 there. So he thankfully backed out of it, but he gets the exit off of 4. Now it's going to be a game of chicken. It's very fast here through 5. It's a quick kink, and Duncan is the one that's going to give that game of chicken up.
So a little bit of games here. You got to be able to hold back when you can. Battle up in RSRs right now. Jim Slavic and Michael Bolton. Bolton quite good at forging Fridays, but right now trying to hold off or hang on and pass Slavic for the 4th position.
Oh, he's not looking steady under the brakes. I think he locked him up a little bit, and he had to collect the car. That's a lot of time compared to how close he was before. Goes back to what I was talking about. You can't let other things mess up you hitting your marks and making sure that you're just consistent and smooth.
Right now it's a 23-second gap between Bolton, the final GT3, and Jacob Abrams, the first GT4 machine. So everyone here is starting to separate out, but once these classes begin to merge up with one another, Joe, how do you think that the speed difference will make a difference here once we actually start to merge traffic?
Gonna really catch them out heading into the chicanes, heading onto the backstretch and into the front stretch as well, because the banking's going to allow those GTE cars to really just pick up such immense speed that the GT4s can really be caught by surprise unless you're making sure and keeping your head up and watching either your mirrors or what we call your F3 box in iRacing. They can sneak up on you and you can try and turn in and not realize that suddenly there's the faster class trying to take the apex away.
On board here with Corey Lavala trying to hunt down Michael Oates for the 5th position here in GT4. Lavala hasn't spent a ton of time up front this season, but right now playing on a great race, 5 minutes through, 25 remaining here at the Charlotte Roval. Meanwhile, Michael Oates holding on to that final spot in the top 5, but he's lost touch here with BJ Fulton in front of him, and the top 3 began to pan out as well. Woo, going in hot, nearly misses the corner, up the turtles, and that might even be a speed or a time penalty there.
Definitely be a time penalty. I'm more worried about how much damage he got because he flew. I'm pretty certain he was 4 wheels off the ground there going through the chicane, which is sad because he seemed to have better pace than Oast. I think Oast is suffering a little bit of top speed hindrance from the damage he got and the wreck during the pace lap.
And I think Robert Stout right behind these two had to take, or no, that's Chad Duncan, had to take evasive action there. He had a chance to catch Lavala there and pass him, but he had to kind of get out of the way and make sure nothing happened to him. You got to keep your nose clean here. Back up to this battle for 4th. Slavic still trying his best to hold off Michael Bolton here as they go through NASCAR 1 and 2.
Bolton was much smoother through that backstretch chicane. He's thinking about it down here, but this is where he lost it last time. I think he's learned his lesson, though. That looked a lot better. He's certainly trying to make Slavic think here. He's just trying to get into his head. And they're meeting traffic already.
Yeah, rolling up on GT4 traffic, and you can see just in that small straightaway the speed difference between the GTEs and the GT4s. And another GT4 starting to come on up here. Slavic overshoots the corner, able to get back down and back in the way. But just see how fast they pass him there in just such a short amount of time.
Infield will be a big worry spot as well because you could lose a lot of time if you catch one of those GT4s at just the wrong spot. Mainly, you just want to set it up so that they're not parked at the apex when you're trying to send it down to there. So you can kind of back up the corner a little bit to help yourself in that sense. It is tricky, although it looks like this is a great shot for Bolton here.
Nearly side by side, heading to the chicane, door to door. Looks like Bolton will take the lead. Slavic decided to let him go. You just cannot go too wide. I don't care what car you're in. Going too wide through that chicane, it's tough. You have to be in a heavy stock car going extremely slow in order for that to work, and both drivers don't go flinging into the wall.
Yeah, it takes respect from your competitors, and that's a big thing at a track like this, which is very tight. You need to really be able to trust one another when you start to actually battle. Just because of what you pointed out, things can go wrong oh so quickly, and you can pay for it with more than just a couple tenths lost. The body work is going to be shed in this case. Oh, and wow, Slavic was way off course there.
Yeah, looks like he missed the exit of the corner, and wow, Momeyer getting airborne right in front of Slavic, and when you're a GTE, that's the last thing that you want to see out of your front windshield.
Goodness, somebody needs to tell these guys this isn't the Red Bull air race. We've had 2 cars in the air off of these curbs. Look at this, all 4 wheels. He touched the grass, that's what caused it. Great heads up by Slavic to just give him the little bit of space that he needed so that car didn't fly into him.
I can't believe that Momeyer didn't just absolutely obliterate the wall or something. Here's another look. Woo!
Catch, actually.
Going rallycross.
Load up the car pretty quickly as soon as it hit the ground. Thankfully, look at how much damage he got from that.
Yeah, those turtles are the meanest turtles you're ever going to come across. No matter where you go, Momeyer able to at least save a little bit of his car. That could have just went a nosedive into the wall, but able to keep control. You're not missing anything up front right now. In GTE, Teddy Framheim has eclipsed 8 seconds for his lead over Bayan Salehi. And in GT4, it's now nearly a 6-second lead for Jacob Abrams. Doug Boccignone still ahead, though, Paul Newton for that 2nd position in GT4.
This is where it's not looking good for Doug. The amount of gap that they've got, the distance. is less likely to be helped by the traffic. Abrams has done what he needed to do, which is basically get himself a buffer. Now he can kind of play nice with the leaders when they come through. He doesn't have to stress about how much time am I giving up. He knows he's got the pace that he can pull away. And even if he does give up, maybe a second trying to let someone through, it's not dire. He's still not under attack from those behind.
Michael Roban right now in 8th, trying to hold off Connor Bloom, traditionally in the GTE Pink Pig, but now joining the GT4 ranks this week.
Oost was into the wall. Oost just lost his spot to Latvala coming off the final chicane. Oh, it's pretty damaged. He just lost it again.
And that one's going to be tough, hitting both the front and the rear ends, able to get back underway. But we'll take another look back here on your GSRC replay machine. Oost in the blue and orange.
What happens, because I haven't watched this one yet. Too much curb once again, and Corey nearly gets collected in the process. When you follow closely to a car ahead, you always got to be a little bit wary, and it goes back to the trust thing, as there's the second incident. The trust thing that I was talking about. If you know that the driver you're behind is nice and consistent, you can follow closely. If they seem on edge, sometimes it's actually better to give them some space, because they can so easily make a mistake and then you get caught up innocently in it.
And that is why I don't have many drafting partners in the leagues that I am in. As we continue on here, Framheim still leading. You still see RSR traffic sliding through. That's Jim Slavic moving around in GT4. You see the black and yellow machine Michael Bolton still in front of him. This is actually the closest battle in all of the RSR competition. Meanwhile, GT3s, or GT4s, excuse me, there is still a little bit of contest throughout the track right now, but your closest right now is Bloom and Roban, who are getting oh so closer and closer.
Roban that we're looking at on the attack. It's the gearbox of Bloom. Oh, Bloom was a little hot into the corner. Sometimes this can set up an opportunity down into Heartburn turn. Roban's close. He's not willing to try it. It's actually a relatively swift corner, and Roban lost it trying to exit it there. It's so tempting to get on the throttle as soon as you can out of that first corner. But unfortunately, we've already seen a lot of drivers, Devin, who are getting too greedy, and they're spinning out. That's why they're getting into that inside wall.
And it looks like the race may be coming to a close for Michael Oost after we saw his incident on the front straightaway. He just exited, and he is all the way back in 10th in GT4. And that's another tough thing about this track, is that last chicane is after pit road entry. So if you have an issue either coming off the final corner or going into that chicane, you have to go all the way around the over 2.5 mile course to get back onto pit road to fix any repairs or anything. So if you have an issue, you do not want it to be in Heartburn turn or in that last chicane.
Absolutely, and it's a double whammy too, because if you've got suspension damage, going through that infield is just going to be a nightmare trying to get the car to turn. If you've got just body damage, as you go around the oval, you're just giving away seconds with your top speed down. Now, the good news is they've got a spare car in this series. Actually, they've got 2 of them if they get damaged. So Oost has come in, and he's taken that. And as soon as I say that, off screen, Oost just about lost it heading into the first chicane. So clearly still a little bit rattled.
Teddy Framheim's lead extended to 11 seconds now. Both of your leaders in class, Teddy Framheim in GTE, Jacob Abrams in GT4. As we have another driver, this is Ron Palmer, the Preds, coming down pit road. He has some damage. But Framheim and Abrams both tied for most wins on the season combined. 7 GTE wins for Framheim, 7 also for Abrams in GT4. So both of them looking for win number 8. And there you see the fast repair at work, and it is quite that fast. But for Jacob Abrams, as we watch him here on the screen, he has had a number of races where he is either dominating or just up front, holding everyone else off. And something happens. He had a terrible bad luck streak towards the tail end of summer. And he said it was just tough to get a race in. And it was just a really difficult time to be in the Porsche Owners Club Sim Racing League. Back on track, though, trying to find his way back up to the top step of the podium, as now getting passed by a GTE car. And once again, you see the speed difference.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, even though outside influences often do affect drivers, in the real world, when they're professionals, it's mostly what they do, so they can really sit down and focus a lot easier. Here in sim racing, this is all pretty much a hobby for everybody. So real world really does get in the way and can affect how much you can focus or practice. By the way, Ron Palmer, I can tell you what happened to him. He was exiting onto the oval, and it's embarrassingly easy to hit the wall on the outside there, and that's what he did. Unfortunately, as is this? No, this is not for position that here.
Well, right behind him is this Newton and Fulton. I believe that's Palmer trapped in between them right now after he came off a pit road. This is the battle for the final spot on the podium. BJ Fulton trying to make chase here to Paul Newton. This is your battle for third. The Peel's orangest car of Newton, though, still leading the way.
And in the background, you saw Corey in the 22 going wide. He did the exact same thing that Palmer did, smacked that wall just before you get onto the oval. So now he looks very, very damaged. He probably will have to come in. This battle continues amongst these guys, although it looks like Newton's got himself at least a comfortable gap now.
Paul Newton, the 34-year-old, based out of Fresno, California. Many years of autocross experience, but he's been sim racing since IndyCar Racing 2 back in 1996. So the motion graphic artist trying to find his way back onto the podium. It's been a pretty fair season for Paul Newton. And so again, trying to find just another good finish here. Plenty of podium positions here through season 2.
This will hand him a nice third if he can hold off Fulton in this. I guess the good news for them is with Corey dealing with his damage, which actually he just increased. Corey's off into the barrier in turn 3 just now. Well, that is really going to take him out of the equation of trying to pressure those guys.
Tough situation. The hood off of that Cayman is absolutely gone. Was having some good racing, has a nice paint scheme, made some good moves, but now they're starting to fall apart as Connor Bloom, you see in front of him, is taking over the 6th position. Doesn't look terribly slow. We'll see if he tries to stay out or if he'll just go ahead and take that fast repair. Pit road very slow. Obviously not quite as bad as, you know, in Charlotte, which is regular, but still not a trip that you want to take.
Absolutely, because there's no scheduled stop in this series. So anytime you come down pit lane, it's really going to hurt you and cost you time. Basically throws the win away unless we get something highly unusual with the leaders, which, I mean, I guess with this series is not unheard of. I think he clattered the wall again there coming out of the chicane.
And you see Teddy Framheim roll around the outside. Now a 15-second advantage for Framheim over Bayan Salehi. 17 minutes down, 13 minutes to go here at the Charlotte Roval. Framheim once again putting on a clinic looking for win number 8 in 2020 season 2 through 14 races.
Just amazing what this 106 has been able to do. I'm sure Salehi wishes he could actually see the car so he could take some notes and see how he could pick up a little bit of pace on Teddy. But thus far, I mean, no dice. Really the biggest worry for Teddy right now is this lap traffic. And just like I was saying with GT4s earlier, in Teddy's case, he probably wants to give up a little bit of time here and there just to make safe and measured moves. Racing's all about risk reward, and right now he doesn't need to take those risks. The risks that he can take is giving away a little bit of time here and there just to make sure that that he brings the car home.
And Framheim has plenty of experience racing a Porsche, plenty of autocross experience in his 2015 Cayman GTS. Obviously a little bit different than this RSR here, but that driving experience, like we talked about earlier, sometimes extremely helpful. And on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you can see just how smoothly he rolls through the gears up and down as he goes through chicane number 2.
Now he's going to catch quite a pack of cars, though, and right into the infield where this can be a little treacherous. This is where I would say, yeah, give away a little time. Don't stress on it, and he is. He's going to wait because it's very narrow between 1 and 2. Now he's got some space. He'll get past Fulton. Walsh is up next. He should be able to accelerate him right here, which he does. I would probably not try to get by Newton here. We'll see if he decides to. He does. And he saw, see, this is what we call body language between cars in multi-class racing. Newton held far off to the left. He didn't make any motion like he was going to turn in. And that's what signaled Framheim those little subtle influences to know that, okay, I can take this apex away and not have to worry about us coming together.
Moving by second place in GT4, Doug Boccignone. It's another 12 seconds to Jacob Abrams out ahead, your current leader in GT4. But again, Framheim playing on an absolute clinic, as well as Jacob Abrams. And these two have just been phenomenal. You look at Abrams, an average starting position of second, an average finish of second. And Framheim, basically every week he's here, he's starting on the pole and an average finish on the podium. 4 drivers in this series have an average finish on the podium. That includes Abrams, Framheim, Connor Bloom, who's now in GT4 this week, and also Paul Newton.
I have a battle for 5th because Bloom is much faster on pace than Duncan right now. And he's been chopping away at almost a second a lap, but they're dealing with a little bit of traffic of their own. This is Johnson coming by. Oh, and opens the door. Very cheeky, but well-timed. Bloom saw that coming and said, thank you very much. I'm going to take this without hassle now.
And Bloom is certainly a pro. Definitely plenty of years running in the IMSA Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge himself. Part-time stunt driver, a driving instructor, and the 28-year-old out of San Diego, California for the first time in 2020 Season 2, running in GT4. And Joe, we saw him kind of hanging back earlier, back in like 7th and 8th, and now fighting his way into the top 5, and he might even have enough time, maybe. It's a big gap to BJ Fulton, but a podium here in his first race in GT4, that would be mighty impressive.
I'm double checking the times here. 25 flat last time through for Bloom. Fulton, 26.2, 26.0. Yeah, he's got much better pace than the 2.77. We'll pull up and show you what the last 5 laps were between them. And that it includes trying to overtake a car as well. So if Bloom is quicker, that means he is really a coming. And yeah, look at that.
You can see every single lap, typically over at least half a second. 2 times the past 5 laps, over a second gain in a single lap. And that in times plays a huge role in the open setup, right, Joe? I mean, on one hand, it could also be tire conservation, but knowing where your car needs to be set up in the final half of the race, that is a big deal, especially in a sprint.
Column A, bit of column B. I mean, I've been talking about it earlier today with a friend that fast racers aren't just fast because of one thing. They're an entire package of things that come together. And Connor, with his real-world experience, probably understands how to look after these tires, which you need to on these GT4s. I talked about the understeer. A lot of unexperienced drivers, probably could count me among them, have the instinct to just keep cranking that wheel into it to get it to turn. You do that, it makes the understeer worse because it overheats those front tires. If he's been taking care of them, he can keep that pace up because the car just is able to take the corners quicker. It's not the straights that make you fast. It's how much speed you carry through the corners, especially in a slower car like this where momentum is everything.
In front of him for the next position is BJ Fulton, as we mentioned. He's got to be one of my favorite. Whoa, major damage there. That's Ron Palmer, the president, making contact there with one of the Kermit mobiles.
Duncan, yeah. Duncan, who was trying to keep up with Bloom, thought he could get by because Ron was a lapped car at that moment. And Ron, this is very easy to do. You know, we can give Ron a pass on that one because when you're being lapped, you don't always know that you're being lapped by multiple cars. And we'll see from Jad's perspective, he thought that he was going to be given the space, but you can't always assume those things. Well, there he goes.
Yeah, and you can see the speed difference too as well. And I also know, as someone who constantly is trying to come off the wall sometimes when you make that left-hand turn, it's a little bit more drastic because the wall will sometimes push you out as well. So really unfortunate there for Jad Duncan, who's trying to keep in the rear bumper of Connor Bloom. Abrams leading, Boccignone in second, Newton in third, and we mentioned Bloom chasing BJ Fulton. And Fulton is a fun story. The 33-year-old astrophysicist working for NASA. He has had a great 2020 Season 2. And when did he start sim racing? Just back in May.
Yeah, and that's what's been kind of cool seeing. I mean, obviously, all that we've been going through with the pandemic isn't very cool, but a lot of these real-world drivers have dipped their toes in for the first time, and we've been talking to a number of them that say, you know what, this is a hell of a lot of fun, and I'm going to stick around even after we're able to get back out onto the track more regularly, because the best way to describe it is it's not exactly like the real thing, but it's as close as you can get. And what it does a lot the same is the psychological aspects of real racing, which in the end, aren't we all just looking for that dopamine rush?
Absolutely. I was in a race just a little bit ago at Talladega. I had Kyle Busch on one side of me, Ryan Vargas shoving my bumper, and I said, my heart rate is at like 210 right now. Well, my goodness, I don't know what to do. And it's just one of those things that, I'm never going to have the thrill of going 200 at Talladega, never the thrill of running over turtles way too hard at the Roval, but I can at least get as close as possible here in the sim racing world, even if I don't have a full motion rig.
Now, Boccignone is starting to be caught here. Actually, he had a very poor exit, and Newton's got a really good shot. He's going to get that slipstream you were talking about, but he's going to be forced to go around the long way. This is where sometimes you have to give it up if you don't think you can complete the pass, and it looks like that's what Doug's going to do as he breaks a little early. No! Oh! Wow! Newton's the one that gives way, and now he's got to regain all that time.
And even worse, the 277 of BJ Fulton got much larger in the rearview mirror now, coming down to just 4 minutes to go in this race, and Boccignone might have just locked up a second place finish trying to hold on to that podium. But as you can see just on the right side of your screen, Newton and Fulton not too far behind. The battle for the podium spots not quite done yet.
Layman might think, oh, this is bad news for Bloom, right? Because Fulton could maybe get by other cars. It's actually great news for Bloom. If Fulton starts to get in a fight with those two, and especially if it becomes a three-way battle, they'll start losing time lap per lap, and Bloom can catch them quicker. Considering how little time he has to catch them, he almost needs them to start fighting like this.
Yeah, and Bloom has slightly fallen off the pace. It's an 8.5-second gap between Fulton and Bloom, or Bloom and Fulton, excuse me. Fulton actually ran a faster lap by 0.2 last time by, but you're still not missing anything up front. Teddy Framheim now a 15-second lead over Bayan Salehi, and Jacob Abrams now nearly a 17-second advantage over Doug Boccignone. Two clinics put on by the two drivers who have just been absolutely dominant this season.
Indeed. And I would have loved to have seen what Teddy could have done when we were covering the IMSA Triple Challenge that opened at this track. We had the best in the world vying on iRacing for an official IMSA series for some special prizes from them. And Teddy seems like he's, well, we know he, obviously he can get out there and wheel a real car. So I'm curious to see how he fares against the others. Oh, we've had an accident with Bolton. And it looks like, oh, the Abrams is involved in it.
A massive issue for Jacob Abrams. I don't think it'll take up enough time for something to happen here. But as he goes into turn one, we'll see what just happens here in just a moment.
Chopped off by Bolton. Bolton thought he was clear down into the apex. And he was still there, unfortunately. Could have given a little bit more room. Yeah, it's a great job by Abrams to not smack the wall and minimize the damage, because he went from about a 16-second gap down to a 9-second gap with that.
And it has been a few months since Jacob Abrams has visited the top step of the podium. He still leads this race in GT4 by about 10 seconds. So just has to keep all four wheels pointed the right direction here on the track. For the first time in months, the most just dominant driver of the season will finally be able to get back to the top step of the podium.
He's flashing his lights now. I think this is lap traffic. Just wants to let him know he needs to get by here, and that's Ron. Palmer's going to pull out of the way. He knows he doesn't want to try and ruin a win here. I think we're going to be 2 to go this time by.
White flag here for Teddy Framheim in a battle for second right now. Boccignone only a half-second advantage over Paul Newton. So Newton was able to catch back up to the rear bumper, and we will see if there is just enough time for Newton to make the move on Boccignone.
I think we're actually at 2 to go. Framheim crossed with 1:16 left. They've been cycling through at about 1:12 in these cars. So I think he's going to get one more lap through. It'll be very, very tight. Hopefully enough drivers put the right amount of fuel in after that.
Yeah, iRacing has not displayed the white flag yet, so it looks like 2 more laps to go. And yeah, being open setup, you try to have as little fuel as possible in these cars, so that could be a little caveat that no one will like. Here comes Teddy Framheim, and this might mix up this battle for second in GT4.
Okay, so here's a curious case. Framheim slowed up a lot, but he might still get the white flag here. It all depends. iRacing can be a little funky. We'll see, Devin.
So we will find out here, but nonetheless, Teddy Framheim has just been absolutely fantastic here tonight.
Time just ran out, but we're not getting the checkered flag. So
yeah, so everyone's got to make one more lap here.
All right. Yeah, and Newton is very close to Boccignone now.
Yeah, Newton absolutely loves this call by the iRacing virtual officials. He is trying to gun at that second place position here. Doug Boccignone and the Kermit the Frog Green trying to hold him off. A block here into this corner, trying to maintain that inside line. Newton trying to cross him over. Can't quite get back to the accelerator in time. Forcing the issue on the rear quarter panel. Just can't get around Boccignone.
Left himself very vulnerable. He's kind of lucky there because I thought it was going to be an easy overtake. And now, even better, as he gets a little wheel spin, Newton's got a decent amount of slipstream. He could have a shot here.
Little bit of a draft. We'll see how much he actually gets. Both the leaders right now actually on the back straightaway, I think, together here. As we see this bout for second, trying to outbrake Boccignone. Newton can't get to the rear bumper. And Boccignone running away just a little bit. Meanwhile, coming towards the final chicane, another clinic, another great race. It's win number 8. Teddy Framheim wins at the Roval.
Abrams is going to follow him right across, take a win after a long break from that top step.
And for the second place position, Turtles flying. Both cars are in the wall. Where's BJ Fulton at? These cars are rustling and tumbling. BJ Fulton gets there first, and he's in second place here in GT4.
Reversed across the line to try to get there in time, and he was actually about a 10th shy because Fulton actually smacked the wall, having to avoid all that chaos.
And Boccignone not just loses second, loses third, but also fourth. Connor Bloom. Look at this chaos.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Heartbreak for Boccignone. What was going to be a second place ends up 5th. Connor Bloom nearly podiumed in his first GT4 race. We'll take you through the entire finishing order and also talk to the top 3 podium position finishers in both classes. Framheim and Abrams win here at the Charlotte Roval in the Porsche Owners Club on GSRC. Well, it was a wild one mid-pack in GT4, but up front, it was everything except for, well, I don't know, settled. I guess that's all it was. Teddy Framheim, another incredible victory by 20 seconds Over Bayan Salehi, Michael Johnson rounds out your podium position in GTE. Michael Bolton in 4th, Jim Slavic in 5th. And your 6th place finisher, Jacob Abrams, a dominating victory to earn his 8th GT4 win of 2020 Season 2. BJ Fulton in 7th, Paul Newton in 8th. Connor Bloom ends up in 9th, 4th in GT4, and Doug Boccignone rounds out your overall top 10.
Chad Duncan down in 6th with Michael Ost. Unfortunately, down to 7th. He looked like he could have had something higher earlier on. Roban finishes P8 with Rondeau in 9th. And Latvala, another one that suffered from damage and had to settle for 10th place in his class. Jim Walsh was 11th. Haas was 12th in his first time showing up as far as we can recall. So gained a few spots along the way. Ron Palmer 13th, Momar 14th, and Freckleton 15th, with Stout rounding out the field.
A fun one here at the Roval. Plenty of twists and turns, not just in the infield, but on the track as well. And we chat with your overall winner, Teddy Framheim, win number 8 on the year. I feel like a broken record. I ask you this every time, but it is still so impressive. How in the world do you beat the field by 20 seconds in a 30-minute race?
Hey, thanks. Going in, obviously, I know I have the pace, but throughout the season, I've been working on, as you guys know, consistency. So it's sort of a combination of like knowing that I have the pace if I need it, building a gap at the start of the race, and then just at this point, honestly, assuming the worst of every car that I end up passing because I don't want anything to go wrong.
So you've been sim racing for about 10 years, but you're an engineer at Apple. How does your experience as an engineer at Apple help you in the sim racing world? I'm just trying to get to the bottom of how you're so good.
Well, how much do I want to go into this? Honestly, if in terms of like my livelihood, if I could have a job anywhere in the motorsport industry, I'd be there. It just happens to not be what I went to college for. But I think having an engineering background, being able to understand at some level physically what's happening, and in the case of sim racing, what the sim is trying to model, and then also being able to look at data and understand what it means, and from that potentially figure out how to go faster. Like having that kind of analytical mind really helps.
Well, our co-commentator, Joe Peak, just said maybe you want to search for a job in sim racing, because boy, is that just impressive. And it has been fun to watch you this year. Another victory for you, Teddy. Who do you have to thank for being on this top step of the podium again?
Thank you, as always, to you guys at GSRC. Thank you to Matt Hollander, watching remotely in the POC, for organizing these events as well. And thank you, as always, to my wife and the rest of my family for supporting me.
Teddy, congratulations. Another win. We'll see you here in a couple more weeks as the season winds on down.
Thank you.
Well, we will hand it on over to Joe Peak. He's caught up with your GT4 winner, Jacob Abrams.
Jacob, welcome back to the top step. You had a little bit of a scare, though, late in the race, some contact with Bolton. Did that do any damage to the car, or were you pretty clean?
Kind of guys. Yeah, it did a little bit of damage to the car, but thankfully I was able to build up an early lead enough to the point where it didn't matter, and I could take it easy the rest of the race. So all worked out okay.
Do you feel good about your pace today? Because it seemed like Doug, at least in the first few laps, was keeping pace with you, and then suddenly fell off.
Yeah, this is actually the first time in a couple weeks or a couple races I've had a good chance to build a good setup and practice this track. And I knew as soon as the tires got up to temperature about 2 laps in, I could really turn the thing up to 11 and put in some hot laps, a couple in a row. And I did that with no mistakes for 4 or 5 laps in a row, built a nice lead, and then I could kind of take it easy after that.
Certainly looked like it was basically just rifling them off from about halfway on their outs. We were discussing about whether or not drivers have had experience at this track. I know this is kind of a West Coast based series. Have you ever been out to Charlotte to get to run the road course before?
No, never been there, and really didn't have a whole lot of experience here on this track virtually until the week leading up to it either. So, but thankfully I had a rare opportunity to put in a good bit of practice this week, and it definitely paid off.
Certainly did. That makes it all the more impressive that you came in kind of green here. Well, congratulations on returning to the top step of the podium, and feel free to thank anybody you'd like on your way out.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I think, yeah, I'd definitely like to thank you guys for hosting all these broadcasts, and Matt and everyone at the POC for putting this on, and Works 2 Motorsport, and of course my parents who always watch first thing Tuesday morning, and we always talk about it. And yeah, appreciate you guys. Thanks.
Was our winner in the GT4s. Devin, I believe you've got second in the GTEs.
Yeah, Bayan Salehi in the booth now, and I actually talked to Teddy Framheim about how being an engineer helps him as a racer. How does law help you constantly do well here in this series? Does that have something to do with how well you run sometimes?
Unfortunately, not. I don't see much correlation, but it's I do have a background of I've pretty much grew up in an auto shop, and I have the basics down. But yeah, I mean, just it's been a while. I think it's been about 6 weeks since I last raced, and I still have a lot of dust to brush off. But I just managed to find a consistent pace that's good enough for P2.
Yeah, you found that pace. You were pretty consistent, blew away the rest of the field, got that chrome green on the car. But what was the most difficult part of this race for you?
Honestly, this track, I have been hitting the walls, and before this I didn't have one clean session that was 20 plus minutes. So I was surprised that I kept it clean, with the exception of the last part, which was the most difficult. I mean, right before I was crossing the finish line, those two GT4s were right in front of me, and I collected one of them, but still managed to cross the line with about 2 seconds to spare. So,
well, Bayan, it's great to see you back here again. Who do you have to thank for bringing home second place here at the Roval?
I want to thank GSRC for always putting on a great show. POC, Team Salehi Racing, and Sport Utility Motorcars.
Well, you guys put on the show. I just sit over here, lean back, and have a good time. So it looks like you had a good time as well, Bayan. So congratulations on the second place finish, and hopefully we'll see you here in a couple weeks. Headed back over to Joe Peak. He's caught up with BJ Fulton.
Hey, Fulton with a surprise second place. BJ, how much of could you see of what was happening up in front of you as you came to the line?
Didn't see it happen. I just, started coming through that last chicane and just saw this mayhem in front of me, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I'm going back and looking at the replay right now. I still can't believe what happened. It was just an amazing surprise.
It is. So as you approached, I mean, what was your thought process? Did you think like, oh, I can get some spots here? Or did you have any sort of a tact on how to make your way through? Or is this just everything goes out the window, hit the accelerator?
It was. I hit the brakes and I tried to come through slowly. So once I got onto the final stretch, I realized who it was, and then I had the chance to gain some spots. So I slowed way down and tried to needle through. I still ended up making some contact with the wall or something, I think. And then I didn't even realize it, but I was in a drag race with Paul Newton. He's in reverse gear trying to race me across the finish line. No one's got me.
We caught that on camera. Now, we talked about how tough this race has been for some of the drivers because the walls are awful close. The bad news is you guys are going to Detroit next round. Any feelings about that place heading forward?
No, I have never done a lap on that track, just like I've never done a lap on this track before this, last 2 weeks. And so we'll see. We'll see if I'm good at it or not. It worked out here.
I can give you some advice right now. Start practicing. It's going to be a tough one. But thanks for coming and talking to us. And again, congratulations on second, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was second in the GT4s. I believe third in the GTEs was Michael W. Johnson, and Devin's talking to him.
Yeah, Michael Johnson bringing it home on the podium in GTE. And I've kind of been asking every driver about how something about their life makes them better at sim racing. So for you, Michael, how does Octavio Tequila make you a better GTE driver?
Well, when you realize what's waiting for you once you cross the finish line, it helps you to really kind of, get those extra few tenths out of the laps, typically anyway.
Well, I say you looked mighty fine out there, ready to get over with and grab a glass of Octavio tequila. But for you, what was the most difficult part of this Roval course? Obviously, those chicanes are difficult, and we saw a bunch of drivers get into the wall, but it looks like just those RSRs, they like to corner a little bit better than the GT4s.
Oh yeah, there's a lot more rubber on the road. There's a lot more downforce. But honestly, the most difficult part for me outside of traffic was I got 2 inoculations today. I got my flu shot and I got my shingle shot, and I can't even lift my arm. It is so sore, and that I was about a second off my pace from earlier in the week when we would do some practice and practice races. So I was struggling. It was painful out there.
Well, that is quite the performance then in that case. Congratulations on that third place finish. Who do you have to thank besides, I don't know, whoever was giving you the shots or something for this third place finish?
Well, obviously Octavio Tequila, POC, you guys for putting this on, and all my coaching clients. They all support me. They help me to twist my brain around things, find different ways of doing things, and different ways of kind of play. It's kind of an engineering perspective of how can I screw this up differently. So all my clients, they have different ways of doing things, and playing with their mindset and figuring out things like that. I think that helps me a lot when I come into the sim world, because it's kind of fish out of water. Honestly, I'm missing a lot of feel. I get a little bit through the steering wheel, but that's really it. So it is a challenge for us pro guys when we come out here and try to race these sim cars.
Well, it certainly has been fun to watch. Congratulations on the podium position. Go grab yourself a much-deserved glass of Octavio tequila.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
And before we wrap things up, we'll head it on back over to Joe Peak with Paul Newton.
Indeed, and Paul has answered the long-time question everybody wants to know. How fast can a Cayman go in reverse? Paul, what's the answer?
Not fast enough, apparently, because BJ got past me there.
Indeed. Talk to us about the end, because it looked like, you were thinking at least a third was on the cards, just not quite in that method.
Yeah, it was looking like I was going to get third, but I didn't expect it to end like that. I was just trying to fill Doug's mirrors there. I knew I wasn't going to have a move into that last turn unless I wrecked him, and I really don't want to do that because Doug is a really nice guy. We've raced together really well lately, so I just wanted to maybe force him into a mistake, and that's kind of what happened, and I got caught up in the same mistake, so that's how that one ended up.
Before all that happened, you and BJ actually had a little bit of a fight going on track. You can see him here behind you on screen. Did that rattle your nerves at all, having the pressure from behind?
Not really. I was really looking more out the windshield because I knew I was just slowly reeling Doug in that entire time, so I knew he was back there, but I think I could have held him off if he would have gotten there.
It gave us an entertaining end, although I'm sure you would have liked the second place instead. Is there anybody you want to thank before you go?
I'll take them however I can get them. I want to thank Peel's California Mandarins, Porsche Owners Club, and GSRC. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. That was Paul Newton, who had a very cheery third, even though it was chaotic there, Devin.
Yeah, fun one there. These guys like to have fun, and as I mentioned before the broadcast, I think they enjoy taking a Porsche out on the track that they don't have to pay the bill on when they slap the wall or something. But Joe, heading into the final 2 races of the year, what are you looking forward to here in the Porsche Owners Club?
I am looking forward to seeing how they handle Detroit, honestly, just because I know how tough it is. I really do mean that BJ needs to go and get some practice in right now, because that is a track that requires perfection, and the drivers are definitely here for some fun, and I think they'll have fun, but I think they'll find that the walls will try to end that fun prematurely.
Yeah, and that happens here and there here in the Porsche Owners Club. Another fun night. We'll see in a couple more Mondays, but first and foremost, a thank you to the sponsors that help out this year's getting on the track. and that includes Sunset Mortgage, Octavio Tequila, and Century Financial Consultants. And of course, thank you to the series organizer, the Porsche Owners Club, and also the leader of the series helping organize it, Matt Hollander, who happens to be in Costa Rica, not racing with us here tonight. Instead, happy vacation to you, Matt. And if you might be interested in advertising with GSRC, our channel's 1 million monthly global impressions are a great way to get your branding seen by a diverse audience. Follow the link in the description below on YouTube or visit globalsimracingchannel.com/advertising to learn more. And thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed right here on your screen. And an additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of her for more of her great work. And thanks to the Dream Team today, Joe Peak, our producer, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and of course the great Dougie Beard. If you would like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, on Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Gram. And if you would like to support the channel, go check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storenv.com. The link is in the description below. And don't forget to head on over to our YouTube page, go and hit that big red subscribe button so you never miss a moment here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. And Joe said it, the next Porsche Owners Club Sim Racing League event will be on November 30th as they hit the Detroit Grand Prix. Well, we have plenty more races coming up for you guys for other series listed right here on your screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar if those interest you. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.